Fig fam, morning, episode 3, figs and coffee. I want to talk to you today about pruning your fig trees. And I'm going to go over how to prune a big fig tree, and I'm going to go over how to prune a small fig tree. And it's really important to do both. It's really fun to do both. You get cuttings in the process, and you get a happy fig tree in the end. So let's dive in. Greenhouse. Good morning. All right, before we get started, coffee. So before we get started, we need our tools. You need your cutters. You need some sort of hand saw. I use this one. It's gross, I know, but it's just well used. There's some dirt in there because I cut in the dirt. 1, 2, 3. Your hands. But for pruning a fig tree, if you want, you can use gloves. As a gardener, we generally forget this piece unless we deal with anything sharp or thorny. These are all the tools you need to prune your fig tree. So let me show you guys what a good prune tree looks like, the number one rule I use when pruning fig trees, and how to prune a big fig tree and how to prune a small fig tree. Let's take a look at what a well-pruned fig tree looks like. I go by the rule of threes. 1, 2, 3 scaffolding branches off of the main trunk. You want 3, 3, 3. And from there, it can grow into a healthy, beautiful tree. The reason I do the rule of threes is that it's a popular practice I've learned in the fig world. It is great for airflow through the center of the trees, which not only helps its growth, but it helps it fruit. So on a well-pruned fig tree, you have one main trunk. From that trunk, you have 1, 2, 3 scaffolding branches. From those scaffolding branches, you have 1, 2, 3 secondary branches. And what this is doing, it is keeping the center open for good airflow. It is good for the growth of the tree as well as the fruiting of the tree. It prevents disease resistance like mildew and mold. It also prevents pests from hiding away in here. It's good for sunlight to reach the entire fig tree. We'll still get a lush tree by keeping it nice and open. This fig tree needs very minimal pruning. I get rid of any branches that seem to grow into the middle that could inhibit any sort of airflow. It's not a dire situation. This is a beautifully pruned tree. It's growing almost perfectly on its own. But sometimes when I get these thin cuttings that I'm not going to sell but probably propagate for my own trees this spring, I like to cut them out of the center. These two that are kind of growing off to the side don't necessarily have to go, but I want to show you, since they're growing towards the center, that we don't need them for the healthy tree. So what I do is I'm going to cut about 3/4 an inch up from the base of this cutting, and I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One, I'm taking it close to the node so I can propagate right away, and 2, as this piece of wood decays and breaks back to the trunk or main branch, it's going to heal better and allow the bark, as it heals, to wrap around the scar of the cutting. So if you leave a little bit of branch left to break down, decay on its own, you are actually allowing the tree to grow up and around it. Rather than cutting right down to the bark itself, you could create bigger issues down the road. Same with this cutting here. Take it about an inch up from the main trunk, and there's your cutting. These cuttings are on the smaller side for me to sell, but they are on the large enough size for me to propagate. I could probably sell this one as 2 cuttings if I cut it in half. Sweet. 1, 2, 3 cuttings. But as a whole, I wanted to show you guys what a great tree looks like. If anyone's curious about this fig tree, it's my Genovese Nero AF. AF is just the strain that the Genovese Nero came from. If you have an Italian 258, this is essentially the same tree. It's a nice dark berry fig, and it ripens for me end of August, a lot of September. I really wanted to show you guys what a well-pruned fig tree looks like, And as you can see here in next year's growth, I am going to cut some more for cuttings, but I wouldn't do any other serious pruning to the tree as it's going to keep growing in this manner. But what's easy to note is the rule of threes. 3 scaffolding branches, 3 secondary branches, and eventually 3 tertiary branches. So let's take a look at how I would prune another big fig tree that needs some help and how I would prune some smaller fig trees. All right, fig fam, here is the Mother Celeste fig tree, and I'm going to start by pruning it off the side of the house. All right, fig fam, how it is getting close to the house. It's just a cosmetic thing, so it doesn't bang against the house during storms. These lower branches make fruit, and they're easy to grab fruit off of. So I don't want to prune them all the way back. They're really fun for kids to get to. It hasn't really caused huge pest issues, so what I really want to do is remove this branch because it's on the house, and any of these top branches. Sometimes when the branches of big fig trees or any sort of large vegetation get close to a house, it can kind of block the airflow. So this is also an additional help of allowing airflow to come through to avoid any sort of parasitic buildup, any sort of disease buildup that can occur, whether it's on the house or on the vegetation. So I'm going to remove this branch, and I'm going to remove any sort of branches that are starting to face towards the house and kind of give like a nice 2 to 3 foot buffer through this entire space here. So time lapse commencing now. Now that I got it off the back of the house, we have this nice buffer with nice airflow, I can get rid of some of these middle branches that are kind of constricting it. Do not worry about pruning too much of your tree. It will produce a lot of new growth. I want it to stay balanced, right? When we have big trees like this, because its own weight will topple it over. So we have to be strategic. The only thing I really want to change at this point, I've been pruning this for years now, will probably be this branch right here. And that'll just give it lots of airflow through the middle. A lot of these interior branches won't see a lot of fruit growth. It's almost been trying to reach out this way, and you'll see that it has a lot of branches over here for good growth. And this branch here, if I were to remove this branch, will fill in accordingly. So let's go ahead and remove this, and then other than the suckers, I think this tree is done, guys. Okay, here under the tree, let's go ahead and get rid of this thing right here. Woo, that was a big one. I left a few inches right here. So this will break down over time, but giving the extra amount for bark to heal the wound and close it up. Again, this will rot back, but the healthy bark will wrap around and scar it nicely. You can see how it's a big cutting, big branch, big fig branch. As I bring you guys out here, you can see how big this branch is. It's as big as some people's fig trees. That's how big this tree is. Look at this thing. And it'll become, I don't know, 50 to 100 new cuttings. So check that out. Look how big fig trees can get. If you think about it, that tree, 10, 12 feet tall, 15 to 18 feet wide, that is a beautiful fig tree. And it's not a 60-foot oak tree, which is great. And you still get thousands and thousands of figs. In fact, let me show you all the buds that we'll see figs on. If we look across here, all of these branches will produce new growth and new figs. And sometimes I do trim the tops down because it's so tall, but that is for the wildlife. Down here is for us, right? So everybody gets a fig. It makes thousands of figs every year, end of July, beginning of August. Celeste trees are great in humidity. But this is the dream, guys, is to have a tree like this. And some nice pruning tactics will let it grow more and more robust every year. And as you can see, I removed that huge branch and you can barely tell. It went right over here. That I cut the branch out of the middle. This will increase the airflow, which will give it healthy growth, healthy fruit, and keep the tree healthy in general. But this branch here and these branches here will see that sunlight and grow into this space, and we'll get more first year growth, which will equal more figs. So this is a healthy option for big trees, is to keep that middle open. I can even remove a few of these. I'm not going to for now because I want to show you how to prune a small fig tree. I just wanted to cover with you guys. You can see that suckers still come up from huge trees like this, and that's okay. You can dig them up every winter. I want to show you how to dig these up, but because of time, I want to get you over and show you how to prune your small fig trees. But if you want to look on how to dig up suckers, check out episode 2 of what I posted last week. It's a very similar process in pots that you would do with in-ground. The only difference is you need a bigger shovel, and you can't take it out of a pot and cut it from the side. You got to go right in and backfill with some healthy compost or soil mix, even topsoil. But put some compost in there with that topsoil. That way it'll heal, put out more new roots, and grow even stronger. As we jump into pruning our small fig trees in the wintertime, I want to show you an ideal fig tree after its first or second year of growth. I started with a main trunk, and then after the first year I cut it. So in its first year of growth, after I grew it from a cutting, and you can see the parafilm right here, it grew the stalk where I pinched it about 1.5 to 2 feet up. When I cut or pinched this top right here, it started to sprout out branches from the lower nodes. I isolated 3 main trunks. I recently cut this trunk down here because these were evenly spread, and these will be my scaffolding branches. So you're looking here at a 1 to 2 year old tree. I want all of my trees generally to look like this to begin that open center process for good airflow so it can grow into a healthy fig tree that you've seen as that huge fig tree over there and my middle-aged, probably 5-year-old tree from the beginning of the video. So I'm going to show you 2 different trees and how I'm going to prune them so they can look like this. My Colonel Littman's Black Cross, and it is all over the place. I did buy this from somebody in the past, and I let it just do its thing. I wanted to put it in some healthy soil, get comfortable in its new space, but as we see here, it didn't know which direction to grow. It's about 2 to 3 years old. It has all this extra vegetative growth in here. What I am going to do is, now that it's wintertime, I'm going to pull out this cover growth of mostly clover. Eventually it'll turn into more compost. Clover has a lot of nitrogen in it, so whatever dies off of clover will go back into the soil and benefit the growth of the fig tree. I'm going to throw these cuttings up on FigBid. So if you guys don't know figbid.com, I go up there on occasion. I want to isolate scaffolding branches and prune off the branches that are unnecessary. Now there's 2 routes we can go about this. Some people who want a tree can remove all these side branches and go off this. That being said, I think this tree is going to live the majority of its life in a pot. And so I have about 8 to 12 inches here, and I'm going to isolate 1, 2, 3 branches. These will be my scaffolding branches. So it's very simple, straightforward. I'm going to prune the center out and leave about 2 inches for it to scar and recover nicely. And we'll go from there. Boom, just like that. Remove this cutting here, leave about it. I should have left more, I apologize. And I'll remove these buds. But the rule of 3s, 1, 2, 3 branches, and then they will grow branches as well. And now we have a nice, beautiful tree. I put it in new, awesome soil and fertilizer this spring, so it was able to acclimate quickly, but it dedicated a lot of its growth to the top of this branch. But I want it to focus on growth here. So you'll see this expand, and get robust. And that's the game plan. So 1 tree down. Let me show you another tree that has suckers and actually doesn't have a defined scaffolding branch system that we are going to prep for next year. And it'll be interesting to see. Check it out. For everyone with young 1-year-old trees, sometimes they can grow quite spindly and have all these little offshoots. And my goal with young trees is just to let them grow as much as possible because it establishes the root base, right? But something like this that I have A lot of small cuttings that aren't viable for sale or for my own propagation, I let them go. And this is a Nursery d'Elba, so some sort of dark fig from Elba, which I think is an island in Italy. It makes beautiful small figs. Shout out to Bill from Off the Beaten Path Nurseries in Pennsylvania. I look up to him a lot. If I don't have the figs that you're looking for, reach out to Bill because his setup is beautiful. He's got a robust collection of figs, and I look up to him as a fig mentor. So I want to say thank you to Bill, and thank you for being supportive of me jumping into this as well. Jumping back to this Nursery d'Elba, it's quite spindly. It likes to grow like this. But as I establish it into a tree, I'm going to remove the small ones. So this is a 1-year-old tree, guys. So you guys with 1-year-old trees, this is what you can do to grow it into a beautiful large fig tree. I want to isolate one branch and remove the excess branches. You can actually probably use that as a cutting. And then I want to create scaffolding branches. Something to pay attention to as it goes up is that it kind of winds, and with younger wood you can still bend it. So a great way to guide a fig tree is staking it down straight up and down. I get to show you today how I prune my fig trees using the rule of threes, so we can have ideal young trees like this that can grow up to be mature trees like the one you saw in my nursery, as well as the one you saw on the side of my house. So if you appreciate this and this helps you, hey, I got more videos on the way coming, so subscribe, like, and I would love to chat with you in the comments section on how best to care for your fig trees. So take care, Fig fam, and thank you.